Welcome to the Small Scape and welcome to today's video, how to recession-proof your aquarium hobby. And I'm thinking this is going to be a series. We have done videos, a number of them, how to save money. There's lots of different options, how to save money in the aquarium hobby, but I'm thinking about this in a different sort of aspect. If you are trying, maybe you're going through some tough times, you're expecting some tough times, some cutbacks, you're starting to look at your budget, maybe recession's coming around. Obviously, with cutting back, you want to save yourself money and then also save yourself space. Who doesn't love small spaces these days? That seems to be the whole rage. And with small spaces, you need, of course, less room to put all of your aquariums if you do happen to have more than one, which a lot of us do, and then less time, especially if you're going to be going through some tougher, more strict times. You want to use your time elsewhere. You may be working a second job, you may be working hard at your current job, you may be even trying to do a little side hustle, so you don't need extra time spent on additional maintenance that I think you can possibly save. So 5 things that I think you should choose wisely for today's video. Number 1, choose your tank size or sizes wisely. A lot of us do have multiple tanks. I think that it's a no-brainer to choose a nano tank if you want to save yourself some money and recession-proof your aquarium hobby. Why? First point for a nano tank is, of course, it's smaller. So you're going to be using smaller materials, less water. It'll take you less time, generally speaking, to maintain your tank just because it's a smaller volume. And even just waiting for your tank to refill or to siphon it out is going to literally take you less time. So with smaller tanks, you're going to use less of everything. However, I think standard sizes are definitely something that you should choose, be it a 5-gallon, a 10-gallon, you can go up to a 20-gallon. Any kind of standard tank size, it will give you lots of options. You can easily replace parts of the tank. Usually they're very easy to come by. You can get them cheaper. They frequently go on sale, especially with the holidays coming up. They're gonna start putting on kit tanks on sale that you can get the whole bundle of it. It might not be your first choice, but you get the whole bundle, really easy to set up. And also, you're gonna get lots of scape ideas because if it's a common tank, like a fluval or a 5-gallon this or a 10-gallon this, you're gonna get lots of different scape ideas because a lot of other people are escaping with that size tank as well. Now, not necessarily going super small would be the best idea. I think you should possibly consider the 10-gallon size because it's gonna give you lots of options. It could be lots of options for fish. Your choice of different fish that you can keep in tanks kind of goes up the larger the tank you go. And then also for different aquascapes, you have lots of different choices for a 10-gallon aquascape. And then also plants, you have a lot of different options, which leads me to point number 2. Number 2, choose your plants wisely. If you're looking to cut back, keep your budget really nice and tight and really watch what you're spending, choose your plants wisely. You can either choose plants that are fast growing if you have multiple tanks and you want to fill up these tanks with very little output of cash. That could be hornwort. Don't underestimate hornwort. It can help your tank stay clean. It also looks kind of cool floating on the top. The other ones that you can consider would be floating plants. They populate very, very quickly and can spread to a number of different tanks. Crypts are really great. They'll be making babies all around your tank eventually, especially if you have patience. Nubius, if you choose a larger variety, you do need patience because it is a slow grower, but it can get very, very tall. Some of the larger varieties, like Coffeefolia, one of my favorites, it can be just a very stunning plant and you only need one. The last one is Vallisneria, one of my all-time favorites. If it's kind of boring to you, Corkscrew Val is super cool. It lends a lot of interest in a tank, and I think it's very underutilized. It can also lend itself to other things, which would lead me to point number 3. And before we go to point number 3, I should mention, if you have favorite plants, stick with those favorite plants. You want to use your favorites so you can enjoy your tanks, your aquariums, all your setups, because if you're not using your favorites, you're always going to be looking to get your favorites. And what we want to try and do is enjoy what you have so that you don't have to keep adding and wanting. You want to be happy with what you have. So point number 3, choose your scapes wisely. I think one of the best ways to recession proof your hobby is choose your scapes with a very specific purpose in mind. It may be to cut costs drastically. One of the cheapest and one of the coolest, especially these days, it's almost a trending sort of scape that you're going to see a lot of, is a natural style or like a river scape, and that you are using rocks which you can find locally. Maybe you're a collector of rocks like I am, like river rocks you can get from the garden center. Wash them off. There's lots of ways that if you look it up with other videos, use either a bleach solution or a hydrogen peroxide solution to make sure your rocks are clean. Those are very, very inexpensive, way cheaper than the $3 or $4 per pound price that you're going to be paying at a pet store for the higher end rocks. You can also use pool filter sand. It's a very, very big money saver. Instead of buying $20 bags of substrate, the sand that I like to get is about 20 bucks for a small bag. You could go and get pool filter sand. You may have to wash it off a little bit more, spend some time cleaning it, but you can get a huge amount for a very small fraction of the cost. And then in a lot of these river scapes or natural biotopy looking scapes, you maybe just have a single or a couple pieces of driftwood that may not look like a whole lot, but that's really what a natural aquarium is going to look like. So it may be some driftwood that you already have on hand, or maybe came from a different aquascape, or even broke off of a larger piece. I've seen very, very cool looking aquascapes with just very boring, almost looking driftwood. Then the plant that you would want to use, that I like to use for this type of aquascape, could be Val. Vallisneria looks really awesome in that type of biotope, and it can go, I've put it in pretty tiny tanks, which you may not want to because that will cause you a little bit of maintenance. But when it grows, it will just start flowing, kind of falling on top of the water, and that looks really, really, it just looks really natural and has a really relaxing vibe to it. And Val grows really quickly, so you can have that popping up in all your tanks in no time. Number 4, this one's going to be a tough one. I think you should choose your placement and the quantity, the number of your tanks very wisely. Most of us suffer from MTS, multiple tank syndrome, and you start off with maybe 1 or 2 tanks, and then by the time you know it, you have maybe 6, 7, 8, you have 10, you have racks of tanks, because you just want another aquascape, you want another type of fish, you have baby fish, and you just keep multiplying on and on. Well, you want to keep that in mind when you're looking ahead and you want to kind of clamp down on things, because those tanks, they're going to be so much fun to set up. You're going to have new fish, a new little scape to look at, but that's also going to increase the work that you have on a weekly, daily basis, and you never want this hobby to become work. Don't do it. I've had up to 20 tanks in my Nano Nook before. That was way too high. Went down to under 10, and every once in a while I consider, is that too many? Just keep it in mind how many you want to maintain, and where do you want them. Make sure you're putting these tanks where you spend time. One of my favorite tanks is the one that's right next to my desk. That's where Peanut is, and I see it all the time, and I just get to spend quality time with Peanut throughout the workday, and we get to talk about a lot of things. And if you do totally obsess about having a new scape, you know what you could do? You could take pictures or keep pictures, like in Pinterest, of different styles you want to do someday. Then you can slowly but surely add a different kind of aquascape, but in the meantime, just collect pictures, a want list instead of a have to have, and you actually create these tanks to maintain. Pictures are free. You could also consider no fish tanks. Yes, fishless tanks, tiny tanks, water gardens. I highly recommend them. I know a lot of people don't get it, but I highly recommend it if you are trying, maybe you're even just wanting to practice aquascaping. Get these little tiny tanks. They don't even have to be actual aquariums. They can be just glass cylinders that you can get at the thrift store, and you can buy them for just a couple dollars. They're really great. You can practice your aquascaping. You can use little tiny pieces of driftwood like this, fake plants. This is at, you can get anywhere. It's like a little mat of, it's probably supposed to be buse, but you can just practice. And that's what I like to do. I like to have like a little dry scaping area where I can practice, take a picture. Practice making a little tiny scape. If you really like it, set it up, take a picture of it. Then you can have your fun of aquascaping, but you don't have the after effects of having to take care of a tank. And the last point for today, number 5, choose your trends wisely. And this is probably going to be another video coming up. I'm still working on it. But trends in the hobby, if you see them pop up, you probably do, need to keep in mind which ones you want to follow. They're all going to be really tempting, especially if you go to the Aquashellas and all of the aquarium stores, and you're going to see all the latest and greatest advertisements and different aquascapes that people are setting up. I'll give you some examples. Lately, along with like the river biotope, which is really good because it's a really inexpensive scape to do, there's also a huge trend coming that is, well, it's right here, with huge pieces of driftwood coming out of your tank. So only part of the driftwood is actually in the aquarium. The rest of it is rising way above it, which is totally cool. And it could actually save you some money because you may have a really huge piece of driftwood, but a really small tank. Guess what? These days they can go together. So you can actually use what you have. It is a possibility, something to consider, but it's also something that you don't want to just run out and try and do these scapes, because these can also take up a huge amount of room if you're talking a very large piece of driftwood. But the other trend is tiny tanks. Opposite end of the spectrum, really tiny little terrariums. Do you want to go and create, 5, 10, 15 of these? Probably not, but keep that in mind that if you do, like I said before, if you want to do a little aquascape style that you really, really love and you see it on a scale, it's a 20 gallon, 30 gallon tank, you don't have the room, it's going to cost a lot of money, consider miniaturizing it and create a little tiny replica of it, and with or without water, and then also without fish, because once you go to a small little size, you're definitely going to want to keep fish out of the mix and just have it as a little water garden or even a little terrarium. Then you can even find all your stuff outside. Little twigs and branches, moss, little moss gardens are really fun, and they cost nothing at all. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and it gives you some ideas how to recession proof your aquarium hobby. Let me know what are your tips, and I look forward to episode 2.